All right, it is straight up the top of the hour, so let's get things rolling. I am Mike Montague, Global Head of Content at Sandler, and I have with me Dave Hiatt, Director of Organizational Excellence and Franchising here at Sandler. And we're going to be talking today about how to retool your business for success in 2021 and beyond. In our Organizational Excellence program for leaders like yourself, we have over 50 different tools that we use to help people strategize, plan, prepare for people acquisitions and the positions that they're in and how to measure success and all kinds of cool things that we know you have to do day in and day out in your business. And we thought here at the end of 2020, start of 2021, it would be a great time to kind of readjust, look at your business and think about things that you might need to change, retool, upskill employees for, and things that have been disrupted in the last 12 months or so. If you're not familiar with Sandler, we do webinars like this every month for free, but we also train over 30,000 people a year in over 250 locations around the world. And typically that's in business development, how to grow your sales, how to grow your sales team as a sales leader, or develop your business for organizational excellence like we are talking about today. So Dave, I guess jump in here and help me out with the Organizational Excellence program. What is it and who's it for? And then we'll get right into the content today.
Well, I'd like to use an analogy if I can, Mike. Business leaders are steering the ship, so to speak. They're driving the car. They're the leaders. They're the ones that make it go. They're the ones that know where they want to go. And then that vehicle, that car is that company is how they're going to get there, right? So we know that if they're driving an old jalopy that's falling apart, they're going to have a hard time getting to where they want to go without a whole lot of anxiety, wasted energy. So the more excellent you can make that vehicle, the quicker and the easier the trip's going to be. So organizational excellence is designed to help you take your company from wherever it is right now to a better level, to improve it from within. So if it needs tires rotated, you got to figure that out. If it needs, some body work, if it needs some interior work, right? So you figure those things out, and it's a process to do that. And while a lot of people do it onesie twosies at a time, this program is designed to allow you to work on the whole organization from the inside out.
Yeah, I think that's great. I'll point out a couple of other cool things that I've seen on here. Number one is it's a wheel. So this is a continuous process. And I think two things about a wheel. One is just by that you guys know as leaders that by the time you think you finished like pulling all the weeds, you got to go back and start over because weeds have regrown back in the spots that you visited before. And the other thing I like about the wheel analogy is you can have a really good, small business. Like you said, everything could be tight and running well, but you're not going to get as far if that wheel is small. The more you grow this wheel and you push everything out and you get all 6 of these areas bigger, better, and stronger, you go a lot further each rotation. So maybe that's every year or every month or quarter, but you get a lot farther the more you can grow these things and push them out and stretch your comfort zones and your business's capabilities on a regular basis. And last thing I want to mention. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Each rotation gets easier too, Mike. Each rotation gets easier for you.
Yeah, momentum helps a lot with that too. So we're going to be talking about a lot of these things today and helping you work exactly on that for your business. But I wanted to give you a quick thank you for attending. If you go to sandler.com/retool, or you just click on this link now, you can check it out later. There's a book on organizational excellence. There's a course for identifying your blind spots and a whole bunch of other sales and leadership resources available there. So check it out, sandler.com/retool. For more information, we'll share that again at the end. Now, we have also been doing some surveys in our Sandler Research Center about top CEO concerns. I asked a few of you to type in some goals, and I heard some great positive goals in the chat there, but not so much on the challenges. If we were going to ask you, what are your top concerns and challenges right now, what would you say? Go ahead and type those in the chat for us and make sure that we can cover what we need to cover today and make sure we get your problem solved. And also somebody might need to mute there. I can't find out who that is that had sound going, but we're going to keep you unmuted so that you can chime in as much as you want today and participate in the sessions. And what we're hearing from other CEOs. So the sales cycle, velocity, great. Still no face-to-face, adjusting for virtual. Unstable pipeline is up there on the board for sure. Finding and retraining sales staff, that one's up there. We call that upskilling and reskilling. Definitely not a lot of new virtual sales skills that we need to work on. So a lot of good stuff there. Let's see. Making virtual the new normal. Nobody's buying anything related to trade show biz. Yes, the trade show biz are all still waiting. That is definitely tough. Prospecting always on the list, Stephen. Thank you for sharing there. Company culture in a virtual world is definitely a big one. That's one we should dive into a little bit today. I think we see that a lot, especially around the holidays. I've been helping put together our virtual holiday party for this Thursday, and it's tough. It's tough to keep those relationships strong with your clients or internal employees when you're not getting that regular face-to-face with people. Luis, yeah, business can be up and virtual, and certainly 2020 has been a boom for some people and a bust for others. But I think there's a lot of adjusting to this new normal. So that's a great place to start. I think that's exactly the type of stuff that we're looking at, Dave, are a lot of things. What else are you hearing from owners and people that maybe have already taken some actions to retool and readjust, and then people that are still trying to figure that out?
Well, I think the number one thing that I've heard is that when they pivot to something different, right? And I hate the word new normal, but the new reality, whatever you want to call it, sometimes they're overlooking some things that are going to make a huge difference. So, and I think we're going to talk about it today, but I think when you really look at it, I think the environment out there is more than just this quarantine pandemic thing that's going on, that's keeping us sort of isolated from each other. I think there's some other things going on in our environment that also need to be considered as you look forward to 2021. I'm hearing some people missing some of those. We call that a blind spot, something they're not really seeing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so I think when we're talking about how to do this as a leader, and what we're going to need to do is look at how do we create this atmosphere and environment for our business that empowers the team to succeed at executing our plan. But we know that as leaders, we can't do this for them. I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on leaders to put together things that puts a lot of pressure on them, that they're holding all the responsibility for running their business, right, Dave? But they're not delegating this appropriately, and there's some weird balance stuff. If you're too hands off, you're not paying attention to metrics. If you're too hands on, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. You're fighting fires. You're running into a lot of challenges that you probably don't need to. Can you talk a little bit about the balance of a great leader and a well-run organization?
Well, I think, the great leader is driving the car. They know where the car is going. And I think it's important, if you want to empower the team, to make sure the team, the people in the vehicle, also know where they're going so that they can end up at a spot without being surprised. And I think it's part of that. I think the best term is servant leadership mentality, where you're helping your people get to where they need to go by having the roles in your organization that they have, but knowing where you're going and helping the company get there, that empowers people because now they feel part of it. And I think that's critical. And one of the key things that we see too many times is leaders not sharing that vision of where they want that company to go.
Yeah, the other thing I find is controlling the controllables, right? You as a leader can create an environment which allows people to succeed and your company to succeed, but you can't make anybody do anything. So, you can make some choices about whether they continue to work for you or not, but you can't make a salesperson make a sale, right? That's not something that you can control. So when we're thinking about stuff that we're going to plan for next year, let's really focus together as a group today on how do we empower our people and create an environment and put people in situations to succeed without trying to force things, without pushing too hard and worrying about management and compliance stuff outside of regulatory compliance. I mean, compliance to what you would like them to do, and empowering them to be creative and find ways and new ways to succeed outside of what you had thought of as a leader. I think that type of creativity is huge too. So Dave, it's time for our first tool. I uploaded it in the chat. Make sure you click the download button now, because when we send you to your breakout room, that download button is not going to be there. So download, grab tool 3.1 right now. If you have Sandler Online, it's also available in there. We're going to start with an analysis of the external environment. Tell us about this, Dave.
Well, if I'm going to be driving this bus to Florida, and I need to know what the external environment is. Most of us who have planned vacations, if we're going to be driving, we look for the weather conditions, right? Am I going to run into snow and ice, especially in this season? Am I going to be able to take the interstate, or is there going to be a detour? Because how many times have we been on that interstate, neglected to check ahead for construction, only to have a 3-hour backup that we didn't anticipate? So I think when you check that external environment, what you're doing is you're trying to look around and say, what is really going to affect the ability of my company to achieve our vision, to get where we want to go? And it's a lot more than, like I said, than just this COVID thing. And I think this little exercise we're going to do is give you some insight into some of those things that maybe you didn't think about checking out.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about the tool. Everybody should have downloaded it. Now you can click download here in the chat. If you missed it, I'll upload it one more time right now. Walk us through this tool, Dave, and what's our exercise? We're going to give everybody here about 7 minutes to fill this out. What are we thinking about and what are we looking at?
Well, okay, when you look at that tool, you'll see the primary areas, that first column, the things that we think you need to be really cognizant of, and then we break it into specific information to uncover. Now, this is just, a tool. If you need to add specifics to it in your particular situation, in your particular case, then feel free to do that. But we've tried to give you the starters to get the juices going, to get you really thinking of what you really need to be paying attention to, right? So then as you look through each of those topics, talk within the group, share your ideas there, what you're thinking, and then come up with the 1 or 2 things in that third column, the key environmental things that are going to impact your business the most, because that's what you want to come away with.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. We're going to send you to breakout rooms now. I see Vanessa and a couple of people can't get the tool in the chat. Click on the PDF here in the chat to open it up and download it. It should be right there. If you don't see it, we'll try to send it through separately as well. I'll put a link out there for everybody. But we're going to send to breakout rooms now. You got the next 7 minutes. 7 minutes to fill out this tool with your participants, meet everybody, say hi, work through the checklist, see which things are important for you, and then we'll come back and discuss it. So good luck. We'll jump in and out. Let us know if you have any problems. We'll see you soon. All right. If you're watching the recording, you should be able to grab the tool as well and fill this out on your own. If you didn't get through that, feel free to print this off, take your time and revisit, or reach out to your bigger team and do this together as a group. It's a great exercise to learn more about your business, the external environment, things that are changing and going crazy. So we got about 25 seconds before everybody else comes back from the breakout rooms, but you can start dropping some answers in the chat. What came out of this for you? Were there any blind spots or areas that you weren't thinking about, or any top areas of concern that you were already thinking about, but wanted to make sure that it stays on the top of your priority for next year? So go ahead and drop some of those in the chat for us. What were your top areas of concern and anything that jumped out for you? Everybody, welcome back to the main room. Did you find any blind spots? Anything on that list that you hadn't planned for in 2020 or 2021 that you think needs to be a top priority? Click on the chat button. It's in the middle of the screen we're sharing right now. And I'm also going to drop in there the file for our next activity while we're at it, but pop some in there. What's the top areas of concern that have an impact on your business model going into next year? Yeah, I hadn't considered economy as a threat going into 2020, but that came up. 50% of new direct reports in training. That's a lot, Megan. Thank you for sharing. Governmental issues. That one's interesting. Economy could be going either way. We'll never know. Robert, if you wouldn't mind unmuting and chatting that one out. I think sales cycles is interesting and one that people run into a lot. Robert, do you want to tell us more about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we work with a lot of telecoms. We help telecoms in their retail world with device security for handsets so you can buy them as a consumer. And what we found is that the sales cycle has almost doubled. Although there has been a lot of increase and there's still projects, it's that the time to make the decision, because of the uncertainty of what the budgets were going to be set out, basically any budget for 2020 was cut. And then 2021, they're cautiously stepping into it to understand how the impacts will lay out. So all of the time and the money invested in each steps have been extended out. And I think that could have been a big blind spot for us, even in 2021 planning, where we didn't approach that like we probably should have, a little bit more aggressively from a, how do we plan for revenue?
Yeah, I think a lot of people had to adjust to that, right, Dave, in 2020. But as we go into 2021, have you thought about any talk tracks? Dave, I'll go to you first about, people can't hit the pause button forever. I think even governments and other things, they might have been able to freeze the budget and say, let me see how 2020 works out. But if they don't invest in things like power, that's core infrastructure, that can't last forever. How can we improve those types of sales?
A couple things are happening, and for as many businesses that are hurting, there's almost that many thriving right now. And I think one of the key areas that I would urge you to look at in that is figure out there which kind of businesses are thriving and how can your business do more with those that are thriving. Not that you want to ignore past customers or anything, but it may be part of your vision for 2021, and goals are to reach out to more of those thriving companies, maybe ones that before maybe weren't quite the niche customers, but what can you do to reach out to those? So, and I think the uncertainty of the economy, I think you have to really look at that. How's it going to really affect you? Look at the worst case, look at the best case scenario, and then I think have contingency plans, because your priorities will change based on what that economy does and how it's going to affect your business.
Bruce, a lot of people in tech are thriving right now. Certainly, that's where a lot of our business is coming from, but I've seen a lot of other people as well. Some areas of manufacturing, people that have pivoted. We have Sandler clients around the world that, stopped making plastic for other things and started making them for face shields, and masks and other pieces of equipment have done really well. And great answers in the chat. I appreciate you guys. Certainly shout out and help other people solve these challenges, because a lot of you have done the hard work on the ground to solve some of these things already.
Yep.
Also, I would add here that we're not done. That was the first part of the exercise. So we may have prematurely jumped into solving some of these problems, because our next exercise is brainstorming about some of these things. What are the top priorities? What we found is typically business owners have way too many or nothing clearly defined, right? Dave, as we look at this one, I think I see a lot of leaders who have 30 top priorities for all the different departments and things and different projects going on. And it's really hard to get clear about which ones they need or want to succeed. And maybe this is a factor of personality style. On the other hand, I see people who are always working on the shiny object, fighting fires, haven't really gotten clear about what their top priorities are. What do you see with this tool?
Well, this tool, you start with sort of that big picture thing, and what are all the priorities that we have? You throw them out there. In your example there, you can see some of the things that people have thrown out, right? So it all starts with your goals, with your goals that are going to get you to where you want to go, right? So what are our priorities? And I want to go back to that analogy of the vacation of the car. Are our priorities to get there as fast as we can, or is it to enjoy the journey? Is it to stop off at all the little side things to go look at? That kind of thing. What are our priorities? What are the key things? Now, once you do that, that's great, but pick 3 that are the most important. Pick 3 that are the most important, because really most companies can only handle 3 or so priorities, major priorities at any one time. More than that, and it gets confused. So if you know you have 5, 10, 15 priorities, pick the top 3. They're going to help you get there according to your goals and your plans, right? And then as you complete one of those priorities, you just bring up another one, right? And then you're constantly working on those 3, and it doesn't overwhelm the organization, doesn't overwhelm the people that are doing it. I hope that helps you, Mike.
Yeah, that PDF is in the chat. Click download now before I send you to the breakout rooms. We're going to do 7 minutes again on this tool. Feel free in your rooms to share your screen if somebody doesn't have it, and work through filling this out together if you want. But the other thing I would add, Dave, is there's a great quote by Robert Brault. It says, "We're not stopped from reaching success by the difficulty of our goals and the obstacles between us and our goal. We are stopped by an easier path to lesser goals." So oftentimes what happens if we don't have one major priority that we're focusing on, we find other things to work on, right? It fills our time. We get distracted by, oh, there's an opportunity over here, and we pivot too fast versus sticking with that one hairy goal that was going to be the big keystone goal.
But I really
going to make it.
Mike, that is such a key. The leader's job is to keep the team focused on those priorities, which are going to get them to the goals. That's one of the key jobs that you have as a leader.
All right, we'll give you 7 minutes. Come back to the main room with your top 3 goals. Good luck. And if you're not in a room, I'll drop you into one now. If you're watching the recording, this PDF should be available for you, and you can complete this on your own as well. Looks like we got a bunch of unassigned people, so I'm going to. All right, we've got some people coming back, and we got about 45 seconds for everybody else to come back. You can start typing some of your top priorities into the chat now. Share it with everybody. I found a couple of good things happen when you share goals. You end up recruiting help because you're telling more people that have ideas on how to solve that problem. And 2, you're creating accountability for yourself, which is great because once you say it publicly, it becomes real. So lots of good things happen when you share your goals. We'll talk about more of those here in about 15 seconds. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm dropping the next tool into the chat now if you want to download our 3rd tool for today. But while you're doing that, type in the chat your top 3 priorities. I would love to hear some of these. I was telling some of the group here, lots of good things happen when you share your goals. Number 1, you get accountability for yourself. You've committed to it. You've told other people you're going to do it. That makes you more likely to do it. The act of writing them down creates some real value because it's not like a wish or a dream. You've decided and you've written something down on paper. And my favorite benefit is the more people you tell about your goals, dreams, aspirations, priorities, the more help you can recruit. People say, oh, I have an idea on how to solve that, or, oh, I already did that, and hopefully reach out to you. So I see some great things in there. Filling the funnel, definitely huge. And finding balance in a leadership role, delegating more, training people up. Those are all great. Dave, I have a couple of other tips here when I think about goal setting that come up a lot. For me, I think, especially when you're choosing a top priority, is to pick a keystone goal, something that if you hit it, makes all of the other goals irrelevant, that it kind of knocks off 4 or 5, 6 other goals. So I'll think of a business one here, but
while you're thinking, Mike, typically
yeah.
when you take a keystone goal, usually 1 or 2 of your top 3 priorities are all about achieving that keystone goal.
Right. And that's kind of where I was going. A lot of people say, oh, we need to increase sales or revenue, which would be great, but you probably have to do a lot of things to make that happen. But I think about a great keystone goal, like maybe we want to win an award for the best place to work in the United States or in our city or state. When you have a goal like that, you need to do a lot of other things in order to win that award, right? We need to have the right people that stick around. We need to create some good culture. We have to invest in our people, train them up, give them growth opportunities, pay people well. In order to pay people well, we need more sales. Good keystone goals like that will drive a lot of innovation and ideas and creativity, where something, especially when it's not in your control, can be sort of a demotivating goal. Like if you put out, we want to do $10 million more next year, that's a great goal, but it's sort of intangible. It's hard to check that one off the list. So I see some great ones here. Anything else you'd add, Dave, on these top priorities?
Well, as I'm reading through them, I'm seeing some really good ones. And I think, again, pick the 3 that are going to be the most important to reach those goals and vision, and then continually replace them. So you're always working on 3. I just can't get past that because our next tool is going to really help you do that, I think. Now, Mike, one thing I noticed in the chat, can you make the breakout rooms bigger? Because what's happening is you're only getting one-on-one stuff because people aren't really clicking into it. And are waiting.
Yeah, I can. That will shuffle everybody up, so you'll be with new people this time, but that's okay. I'll recreate the rooms and get us fewer so that we have more people in there. I appreciate that. And 2 other things I was going to add there, Dave. When we talk about moving to the next step, and now we're moving into the action portion, and what are we going to do about these top priorities? A couple of things come to mind for me. One, and I've been doing a lot of study on goal setting and performance lately. One thing that came to mind for me is sometimes 100% committed to one priority is better than being 99% committed to 3 or 5 or 16, because that exception is always going to creep up, right? If you're on a diet and you say, well, most of the time I'm not going to eat pizza and drink beer, that still allows your brain time to think about when you can. And it puts a lot of stress on your willpower to say, well, is now one of those days? Or when you get tired and you run out of willpower, you go, okay, today's pizza and beer night. And then all of a sudden there's holiday parties and other things, and you're not really on a diet anymore. The same thing happens to business. If you're 100% committed to one goal, it eliminates all of the other options so that you don't have to worry about willpower and distractions keep creeping in. And it really helps your people make decisions. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to go super big. Sometimes 10xing your business is easier than 2xing your business or 20% growth, because you have to rebuild your whole organization to do 10 times as much. But sometimes when it's just, I want to do 10, 30% better, you result to just working harder and not getting more creative or not fixing the things that need to be fixed.
You hit something there, Mike, I have to talk about. If I just want to do 10, 20% better, I'm going to live with the same old jalopy that I've been driving. If I want to go 10 times, I need to upgrade the car. I need to go to the car dealership and get that new vehicle, right?
Right. So I want you to think about those things as we move on to our next tool. I dropped it in the chat. I'm going to do it one more time for anybody that missed it. Make sure you hit download before we go. Dave, tell us about tool 1.8. It is also tool 9.1 in organizational excellence.
We've combined two steps together in this particular one. And it's because what we're going to do, you're going to pick one of those priorities, and you're going to use a worksheet, one of these worksheets for each priority. So you pick one and you say, okay, so what were the expectations that we had? Again, we're skipping a tool, but a tool that would help you come up with the expectations of what it's going to take to accomplish that priority, right? And then now in step 8, we say, okay, let's create our action plan. And it's not like, okay, who's going to take responsibility? Okay, you got it, Megan. You're the one. Get back to us. Let us know what you're doing, right? It's a heck of a lot more detailed than that. We want you to use the worksheet to make sure you're crystal clear on the action items, who's responsible, who's accountable, who has to be consulted. We call that our RACI model, and who has to be informed. It's what are the action items? What are the due dates? Who's it assigned to? Right? What costs are going to be involved, right? What time frame when those funds are going to be needed to accomplish that priority? Because most priorities are going to cost you money, right? You got to invest in something. I know one of the priorities was someone wanted to do better virtual interaction. Well, you might have to spend a little bit extra money for a better platform to do that, right? You might have to buy a few applications that will help you do it more creatively. And then who has to approve it? When you can get all that down and communicate that plan for that priority, now you're actually got some traction. You really know what you're going to need to do to get those tires spinning, to get that priority accomplished, who's going to do it, who's actually accountable, who's ultimately responsible, becomes huge.
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight that RACI thing one more time for everybody, because I think it's important. Number one is hopefully you as the leader, your name are not in a lot of these boxes other than maybe the who approves line. We want to assign these to other people to get them done. But also what I found even inside the Sandler organization is sometimes if everybody's on a project team, it's not clear what their roles are or if they need to be in every meeting. And then some people get demotivated because they go, well, I'm on this weekly call and I don't have anything to do until the very end of the project and stuff. And they're just having meetings to have meetings. But when you divide these up into who's responsible for doing the work, like who's holding those people accountable, who just needs to be consulted if we need their subject matter expertise, and who just needs to be informed that we're doing this so we don't mess up their workflow later down the line. Like if I'm working on a product for Sandler, I need to tell marketing that a new product's coming because otherwise it's not going to be in flow, right? And once everybody knows their roles, things tend to move a lot smoother because they're not guessing and we're eliminating the uncertainty. I think that's so much of what we're trying to do with you here today is in the year of uncertainty is to clear some of these out. Who's doing what and what are the next steps that need to happen? We're going to give you another 7 minutes to pull this one out. So click download from the chat if you want the tool, share it with your team and talk it out. You got 7 minutes to complete tool 8.1. Good luck. All right. Again, if you're watching the recording or hanging out with me here in the main room, go ahead and fill out this tool. Take your time, do it for each of the top 3 priorities. We're looking for what are your expectations to happen inside of this one priority? What are the steps? How do you create an action plan with due dates, allocate resources, define who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, and then a communication plan to all of those people to get them involved in this top priority. And we got about 10 seconds till we get everybody else back. Welcome back, gang. Go ahead and type in the chat lessons learned from that exercise. Were there any blind spots, any things that came out that you weren't expecting there? Lessons learned from tool 1.8. And I will try and find Dave in here as well. Dave, you're on page 2 now.
That's because our group
How did-
kept talking. You cut us off.
How did that go? Any final thoughts on this tool and where we need to use it, how we need to use it?
Well, I think the key thing on this tool is this is where you're going to get the nitty gritty. This is where you're going to get your hands dirty, right? This is who's going to be, responsible for changing that spare tire, right? And I think it's critical to make sure you've got these action items with the responsibility, the accountability names attached to them, and then make sure when you have your updated meetings that things are actually getting done. That you have what's the action item by such and such in that meeting, then that should be done. And if it's not, you got to ask yourselves why, right? What are we doing? What do we need to do different, right? Who do we need to do different? Perhaps there's someone else that maybe we thought can handle it and is really having a hard time. Okay.
That's what jumped out for me there too. Melinda said upfront planning, and it reminds me of the Sandler upfront contract idea that we can't get mad at people, our employees, for doing things that we didn't tell them they couldn't do, or not doing things we didn't tell them they were supposed to do. Yep. So when we have all this planned out ahead of time, and Pat knows that they're responsible for doing action item number 1, and Yolanda knows that they're responsible for action item number 2, when you go back and ask for it on that date, they shouldn't be surprised, right? So they're either going to come with a result or an excuse, and we can deal with both of those. But I think it's really important to get clarity on that. It removes so much stress, but then it also just creates so much accountability for the people actually doing the work when we figure it out up front.
I love your no surprises, Mike. I mean, that's key. You shouldn't be surprised. They shouldn't be surprised. If you wait and say, go do it, and then 6 months pass and you're surprised that it's not done, you're the problem as a leader. Right? Because you should not have been surprised. They should have arranged it so that you're informed all along the way.
And some other final thoughts here are that there's a nice 6-step process we came up with here of how to actually see success in 2021. We've talked about the first 3. Analyze your current environment, brainstorm on critical actions you need to take, assign a captain for each of those, somebody that's going to be responsible and run with that ball. But these other 3 we didn't have time to get to today, I think are really important. So think about, how do you collect and curate best practices? What happened in 2020 that did work? If your sales cycles are getting longer, who has the shortest sales cycle in your company? What are happening in those deals that are moving quicker than the other ones? Like Dave said, it might be an ideal client. It might be something the salesperson's doing differently. How can we collect and curate the things that are working in our company so that we can do more of those? I think of like a football team, and it's like, well, if every time Patrick Mahomes hands it off to Edwards-Helaire, they get 20 yards, let's keep doing that, right? Until it doesn't work anymore. And then that helps us decide on what our fastest paths to growth are. And then the other side of that coin is number 5, create and capture anything that's missing. So sometimes you're the only one in the company that knows how to do something, or there's one person in your company who's the only one that knows how to do something. There's some magic sauce we haven't quite defined yet. We can create processes, playbooks, employee handbooks that describe what it is that creates these great results for us. And we can capture great things from people who are doing it right. So I think about a salesperson that has a killer phone script or email or video that they send out that gets great responses. Why don't we record what that person's doing and send that out to the rest of the sales team, right? How can we curate and distribute these best practices to everybody else? And then finally, don't forget to celebrate, especially in 2020, making it this far is a win. I think the goal of 2020 and the definition of success is surviving and still being here. Hopefully a lot of your competitors are not, right? But, and that'll make things better for you in 2021. But don't forget to celebrate those wins and lessons learned along the way, which brings us time for our lessons learned. Dave, any final thoughts and lessons on this topic?
Yeah, I think the leader's job is to stay looking out that windshield, to know where you want to go, to keep driving it so that you're getting there. You may be on a dirt road from time to time, right? You may be on that expressway, but your job's to keep that organization going in the direction that you as the owner, leader, executive want it to go. And it's a never-ending task. It's like the airplane pilots who are always off course. If you've ever watched them, they're little private pilots. They're always adjusting their course to make sure they stay on where they're going. So
I think that's great. Go ahead and pick something for yourself and type it in the chat for everybody. We'll do some team accountability as well. And thank you for the kind words there, Robert. We are reading these and paying attention. Any final questions for Dave or I, or comments on what are you going to do to get this thing started? What can you do in the next 30 days, one action item to take movement on the plan you've created today? What is it for you? What's that one thing that would get this ball rolling before the new year, maybe, that you can take action items on? I appreciate it. Eamon, Melinda, Martha, you can take a screenshot right now of the last slide. I think if you click in the top green bar next to where it says sharing screen, you can take a screenshot or a picture of this one really quick. James, I love that. Assign some people.
You know, Mike, I would add one thing. As you're going forward in 2021, take a step. Take any step, even if it's a backward step, right?
Mm-hmm.
But get yourself moving, figure out what you need to do. And sometimes a step back is needed before you can actually be going forward. So don't be afraid to do that, but take the action that you need to get your company going the direction it needs to go.
I love that. If you're going through great times, keep that momentum going. And I love the famous quote, if you're going through hell, keep going. That's not the place to stop either, right? So whether it's good or bad, keep going and keep running with it. If you need some help, check out Sandler.com/retool. That's the link for today and all the thank you stuff. There's a course there. There's one of our best-selling books available. There are also local trainers in over 250 locations around the world that can help you figure this stuff out. And they run organizational excellence programs on a regular basis. So that's the link, Sandler.com/retool. Thanks for joining us, to everybody. Good luck, good selling, and great leading. Have a great new year.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.